Okay, we're going to look at this survey, and there's a very critical issue about surveys that people make, nearly everybody makes a mistake about, and that has to do with how you process this data. So we're going to look at the first half of this collective efficacy scale. And what I did is I went through these questions and I highlighted my responses to it. And this isn't how I really feel. I was just doing this as an exercise, but put in here what I think. Now, we do know that we have to reverse score these. So when we're going to do something with this data, we have to change the answers for the reverse scores because, for example, if a child doesn't want to learn, teachers here give up. I disagree with that. Well, somebody had strong collective efficacy, that actually would be kind of an agreement statement. If you don't change the answers on this, you're going to end up with nothing. It's not going to be a true picture of it. So on the ones that are reverse scored, you have to, before you process any of this stuff, you have to turn this into the right kind of information. So 3, 4, and you'll see why if we're going to do this in just a second. 8, 9, 11, and 12. Because what we want to do, the purpose of doing something like this, is to get an overall picture of how people feel about collective efficacy. Because I'm going to take my score and everybody else's scores on this. I'm going to come up with a whole picture of how this group of people at this school feels about collective efficacy. So now the question is what do I do with this information? How do I come up with a measure of central tendency? Well, just using letters, you can't add SA, etc. Add those together and divide by 12, get anything because you can't, add, subtract, and divide letters. And that's all these are: strongly agree, strongly disagree, etc. The only way to come up with this is to order them and see which one is in the middle, which is the median, or actually the best one is the mode, which one is answered most frequently. Excuse me. So if we do SA, A, A, SA, remember the green one, A, D, D, A, it looks like the most frequently used answer is A. That's the mode. So we would put on here the mode is A for that person. Then we could go off and do the second person's responses, come up with their response, the most common response. What letter, remember, measure of central tendency is what best represents the data. The next one might have put all essays. So their mode would be essay. Then after that, we could take everybody's response individually and come up with a collective explanation of how people at that school look at this issue. Now, very often, and this is where we get ourselves into trouble, very often we will take this because we want to make things easy and do this. We'll take these strongly disagrees and we'll turn it into numbers. The biggest mistake people make is think that, okay, now these are numbers and I can add 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2. We can take all these and add them together and divide by 12 and come up with a number. Remember, we have to reverse order these. In this case, if we were to do that, we would come up with 3. And by 3, I mean I reverse ordered these, added up all these numbers, and divided by 12. And in this case, it just so happens that I happen to do that. It is possible, though, that I could add these up and I'd get a number like 3.2 or 2.2 or 1.1. That can't happen because, first of all, these aren't really numbers. These are placeholders for these letters. The distance for you to divide two numbers, remember the difference between interval ratio and ordinal data has to do with the distance between numbers and whether or not there's a real zero. There's not with this. This is ordinal data. There is no 2.2 on this scale. And if there is no 2.2, you can't divide 2 and 3, or 2 threes and a 2 and come up with 2.2. It doesn't exist on the scale. That's one problem. Two, what causes me to go from a 3 to a 4 is not going to be the same as what causes another person somewhere else to say, well, I'm not going to put a 3, I'm going to put a 4. The point, or the knowledge or the feelings behind going from a 3 to 4 is not the same for every single person. So to be able to take this information and add all these numbers together and divide by how many you have is not going to mean the same thing for every single person, because this is what we're really getting at. All we've done is, for convenience, is we've taken these letters and replaced them with numbers. In actuality, all we can do is something like a mode. Now, because this is ordinal data, that limits the test that we can use. And we're going to get into another set of tests called non-parametric tests. And basically, it is these, if you go back to this document, and this was in Module 4, I believe it's called Choosing a Statistical Test. We had a set of tests when we were comparing, this word Gaussian, when we were comparing interval or ratio data, real numbers like money, test scores, things like that, that we had ways of comparing more than 3 groups, a pre to a post, 2 different groups, all these different correlations. We had the Pearson correlation where we were comparing scores on something. When we have ordinal data, survey data, ranked data, that kind of stuff, there is a similar set of tests called non-parametric tests. Mann-Whitney, Kruskal-Wallis, Wilcoxon, Spearman correlations. They're the exact same kind of test. They serve the same purpose, but it's for a different kind of data. The kind of data that you get from a survey. Now, as I've said many times, people do this wrong all the time. It's been done wrong so much, people think it's the right thing to do. It's not, because of the fact that they're taking these numbers and trying to do something with them. They're not really numbers, for which they're not really numbers. Sorry, I said that incorrectly. They're not. They are placeholders for perceptions, for verbal descriptions of these. You cannot take that and add those together and divide by. Yeah, we got lucky on this example. It just happened to be the same, but more likely you're going to end up with a decimal number. You cannot add those and divide by 12. So the next part of this module has to do with the different kinds of statements. I'm sorry, the different kinds of tests that you're going to run. We're going to see how to compare one group of surveys to a national average, 2 groups of surveys, 3 groups of surveys, how to do correlations with stuff like this to really find the correct responses to these.